There are many cultures with a very different concept of faith than most of us have. But there is one place in the world where a custom causes some young girls to be given to voodoo priests with the intention of atoning for the sins of their relatives. In this new uncensored world video, we're going to take a closer look at Ghana, one of Africa's most unknown countries. One of the most unknown countries in Africa, but also one of the most eccentric and mysterious countries on the planet. Ghana, a place with controversial realities, where thousands of women accused of witchcraft live isolated in a remote corner of the country, with traditions as surprising as the Trosi, which can cause some young women to be offered in dark rituals for the good of the family. A nation with unique curiosities such as being the country with more gold in Africa, receiving the New Year crying, naming its inhabitants depending on the day they were born, or being a country where a man can have many wives. There is a story of a man who had more than 100 wives and thousands of descendants, according to some records. One of the most eccentric places on the planet, both for these traditions and curiosities, and for the way in which they bury their deceased, making colorful rides in which the coffins of the deceased take the shape of airplanes, cars, and even beer bottles. Controversial realities such as having gone from being one of the main regions of the slave trade to becoming the first African country to achieve independence. Pay attention, and don't miss this video because we assure you that everything in it will surprise you. Let's get started. Ghana is a vibrant country located in the heart of West Africa, so it is in a unique geographical location, where the Greenwich Meridian and the equator intersect, joining the eastern and western hemispheres. This tropical land, bathed by the sun, is marked by two seasons, rainy and dry, a reality that sculpts a landscape of incomparable beauty. During the rainy season, the vegetation transforms into a vibrant green blanket, covering dense forests and plains, while the mountains of the Akwapim Togo region rise majestically on the horizon. As the dry season arrives, the sun shines brightly, gilding the plains and highlighting the grandeur of national parks such as Kakum National Park, where towering trees and wildlife intertwine in perfect balance. Ghana's geography is not only a visual spectacle, but also a rich ecosystem, with rivers like the Volta winding through the land and feeding the communities that depend on them for their livelihoods. Thanks to its tropical climate and fertile soil, Ghana has become one of the largest producers of cocoa in the world, being the second largest producer in all of Africa, behind only the Ivory Coast. This crop is one of the country's main sources of income, contributing significantly to its gross domestic product. Cocoa accounts for about 25% of all Ghana's exports, which makes its economic importance understandable. What few people know is that Ghana is not only renowned for chocolate, but also for being the country with the largest gold reserves in all of Africa. In global terms, it ranks 7th among the world's largest gold producers, underscoring the enormous importance of gold to its economy. Ghana's gold mines have been a crucial source of revenue for centuries, and the vast reserves continue to attract international investors. In fact, Ghana is Africa's leading gold producer, surpassing even South Africa in recent years. Unfortunately, gold mining in Ghana has been marked by complicated challenges. Mines, especially in rural areas, often face problems related to labor exploitation and modern slavery in illegal mines known as galamsey. This artisanal mining not only endangers the lives of workers, but also destroys the local environment, affecting rivers and agricultural land. Despite government measures to control these illegal activities and improve working conditions, the problem remains, a reality that may have much to do with this country's dark past. Although Ghana was the first African country to gain independence from European colonialism, in the past it was one of the main slave trade routes, with forts and castles on its coast, such as Fort Elmina and Fort Cape Coast, which served as transit points where thousands of African men, women, and children were shipped to the Americas. The legacy of this sad past is still present in Ghana, remembered in its monuments and in the struggles for historical reparations. In 1957, under the leadership of Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana became the first nation in sub-Saharan Africa to break the chains of European imperialism, an event that marked the beginning of a continent-wide decolonization process. This event not only had a major impact on Africa, but also served as an inspiration for other countries on the continent, which thereafter fought for their own freedom. These realities have much to do with the duality and extraordinary realities that occur in this country on a daily basis. With a population of over 33 million people, Ghana is a melting pot of cultures, with over 100 ethnic groups living in harmony, united by English as a common language. This rich diversity gives it a unique character that is reflected in its customs, traditions, and the warmth of its people. Despite its moderate size, Ghana has a considerable population density, with an area of about 238,500 square kilometers, a size similar to Cuba or the Dominican Republic. It has a much larger population, making it one of the most densely populated countries in West Africa. This is evident in vibrant cities such as Accra, the capital of Ghana, recognized as the most expensive city in Africa. Here, the gap between wealth and poverty is palpable. While the rent for a small apartment can exceed $1,000 a month, the average income of the population is just over $100 a month. Ghana's name is not only a symbol of its current nation, but also a tribute to an ancient empire that once dominated the region. The Kingdom of Ghana, although it has no direct connection to the modern country, was a powerful center of trade and culture that flourished between the 6th and 13th centuries. Upon independence in 1957, Ghana adopted this name as a reminder of its historical roots and as a symbol of its rebirth as a free nation. A large number of tribes and ethnic groups coexist in Ghana, such as the Akan, the Mole Dagbani, or the Iwe. In total, there are more than 100, and each group has its own language, customs, and traditions, making this country a mosaic of living cultures with surprising realities, rituals, and festivities, such as containing a remote village where thousands of witches escape persecution, being one of the places with more people practicing voodoo rituals, performing themed funerals with coffins in the shape of cars, beer bottles, or any other form representing the deceased, or traditions as controversial as the Trosi, which causes some young girls to be offered in dark rituals for the sake of the family. Throughout the video, we will learn about these realities while we learn about others and discover much of the beauty of this beautiful African country. A fact that is very curious, especially for those who do not come to Ghana to celebrate the New Year, is to observe most people in the country crying. This happens because in Ghana, the arrival of the New Year is an occasion loaded with symbolism and rituals. One of the most striking traditions is carried out in several communities, especially in the Osu region and in the capital Accra, is that of weeping at the arrival of the New Year. In these areas, families who have suffered losses or misfortunes during the previous year gather on the first day of the New Year to weep loudly. This collective weeping is seen by them as an act of purification, a means of expelling bad luck and attracting good fortune. This ancestral practice demonstrates how spiritual beliefs play a crucial role in the daily lives of Ghanaians, giving the festivities a deeply ritualistic character. So many beliefs have a lot to do with why Voodoo is one of the most influential and widespread spiritual beliefs in this country. In Ghana, as in many other nations in this region of Africa, Voodoo plays a central role in the daily lives of many of its inhabitants. This system of beliefs and rituals is closely associated with community life, spiritual cures, and protection from evils. Although largely practiced by traditional communities, it is also present in some urban areas, influencing politics, medicine, and social relations in the country. What few people know is that Ghana is one of the most voodoo practicing countries in the world. Many of the voodoo ceremonies are held in remote locations, where priests and healers play a crucial role in mediating between the physical and spiritual worlds. This dark reality of Ghana has a lot to do with the existence of a remote place in this country where thousands of women are in hiding as they are being persecuted for witchcraft. This is happening in Yendi, a remote corner of northern Ghana, where more than 3,000 women unjustly accused of practicing witchcraft live. These women, many of them elderly and widows, have been shunned by their communities after being singled out for alleged spells that cause illness, accidents, or even deaths in their villages. This accusation is based on a deep fear, fueled by superstitions and voodoo rituals, which link misfortunes to the presence of witches. The punishment is inhumane, as these women are banished from their homes, disowned and condemned to live in isolated, disenfranchised, and hopeless camps. The system of witchcraft prosecution in Ghana is cruel and merciless. Those who are accused must flee for their lives, facing beatings, torture, and all kinds of threats. Often they are rescued by relatives who transport them clandestinely to these camps, where life does not improve, but becomes a daily struggle for survival. Most of these women live in precarious conditions, struggling against loneliness, hunger, and discrimination, while the children who accompany them suffer double discrimination. Despite efforts by the Ghanaian government to close these camps and reintegrate these women back into society, fear persists. For even if these women try to return to their communities, the mark of witchcraft continues to haunt them. It may seem absurd or impossible that in the 21st century in Ghana, some women are still being persecuted for witchcraft, as they might have been in the Middle Ages with the Inquisition. But that is how extraordinary and eccentric this small African country is. The persecution of Ghana's so-called witches is a tragedy that continues to scar entire generations, and the voices of these women remain one of the most painful stories the country has yet to face. This dark reality aside, beliefs in Ghana begin almost as soon as you are born, because in this country, the day of birth has such a special significance that it influences the name parents give their children. In Ghana, each day is associated with specific names for men and women. For example, if you were born on a Monday, your name could be Kwadwo for men, or Adwoa for women. This tradition, which is still alive today, reflects the deep connection of Ghanaian culture to the cycles of nature and the cosmos, and shows how ancestral customs continue to influence a person's identity from the moment of birth. From life we move on to death, as one of the most striking customs in Ghana has to do with their funerals and a very colorful and somewhat eccentric tradition, the tradition of themed coffins. This way of dealing with death is truly exceptional in Ghana, as many Ghanaians hold themed funerals to celebrate the life of the deceased and their passage to the afterlife. At these funerals, the coffins may take the form of objects or symbols related to the life of the deceased, as an expression of respect and creativity. If the deceased was a farmer, for example, the casket could be a farm or a farming tool. If he was a driver, the coffin could resemble a car. And even if he liked beer, the coffin could be in the shape of a bottle. This tradition is deeply rooted in the cultures of the Akan people and other ethnic groups, who believe that the coffin should reflect the personality and occupation of the deceased as a tribute to his life and work. Themed funerals in Ghana are not just a farewell, but a celebration of the life of the deceased. These events can last several days and include rituals, music, and dances. The making of themed coffins has become an art form, and some of these coffins are so impressive that they are displayed in museums around the world. This fascinating reality reflects the deep connection Ghanaians have with death and the afterlife. For many of them, it is not just a goodbye, but a journey into eternity with dignity and respect, ensuring that the spirit of the deceased is accompanied by a coffin that reflects who they were in life. Thinking about this reality, we are curious to imagine what the coffin of one of the most famous people in Ghanaian history would have looked like. A man known to have had over 100 wives, and according to some local legends, thousands of children and grandchildren. This figure, to whom many give the name Kadai, is part of the stories that have endured among the locals, a tale that, rather than a proven historical fact, has become a legend that reflects the reality of polygamy and power in many African societies such as Ghana. In the northern regions of Ghana, polygamy is not only a common practice, but also a symbol of status, wealth, and power. Kadai's story, although shrouded in mystery, illustrates how family structures and traditions have endured over the centuries in this region. In his household, each wife played a crucial role in running the household, and although internal rivalries were inevitable in a family of such magnitude, Kadai managed to maintain a balance. His ability to mediate between the tensions and conflicts of his vast family made him a leader within his community, a symbol of authority and respect. However, Kadai's story also opens a debate about the relevance of these ways of life in modern society. While some see her as a symbol of wealth and power, others see her as a vestige of times past that conflicts with contemporary values of gender equality and social justice. The figure of Kadai, although probably more myth than reality, reflects the tension between the preservation of traditions and efforts to adapt customs to a more egalitarian society. At this point, we take the opportunity to ask you, what do you think of the themed coffins in Ghana? What do you think of Kadai and his legend, or what surprised you the most? Pause the video and leave us your comment. We will love to read you, and know that doing so is the best way you have to support Uncensored World, so that we continue working every week to bring you interesting content like this, so thank you. Before ending our journey through this extraordinary and eccentric country and getting to know the most controversial tradition of all, known as Trosi, it is interesting to discover Lake Volta, the largest lake in Africa in terms of surface area. This imposing body of water, which occupies a significant part of Ghana's territory, is vital to both the country's economy and daily life. Not only is the lake essential for agriculture and fishing, but it is also a crucial source of hydroelectric power, thanks to the Akosombo Dam, which supplies much of Ghana and neighboring countries. In addition, its natural beauty and vast waters make it a tourist attraction, with several fascinating islands. The most famous being Dodi Island, which has become a popular tourist destination for its tranquility and idyllic scenery. Lake Volta is also an important cultural connection point, offering travelers a unique experience of local life, while delving into the rich history of the region. As a place of rest and recreation, its waters are home to Dodi Island, a favorite spot for those seeking to escape the hustle and bustle of the big cities, providing an opportunity to enjoy nature and learn about the culture of the communities living around the lake. Communities such as the majority in this region of Lake Volta, who maintain such controversial traditions as the Trosi. This custom dates back centuries, although fortunately in recent years is in decline, but is still a reality in some rural areas of Ghana, especially in areas near this lake, a place full of mysticism and culture. Trosi is a tradition deeply rooted in the life of these communities, based on the belief that certain grave acts committed by members of a family can be atoned for by a symbolic human sacrifice, delivering a pure young girl to a temple or shrine of voodoo priests. Young girls, pure and chosen by their families, are given to the service of the priests for the purpose of atoning for faults in the family, such as moral or social transgressions. Often these young women become servants of the temple, living under the orders of the priests, without the possibility of leading a normal life outside this context, which in many cases resembles a form of ritualized slavery, similar to the conditions experienced by some priestesses in ancient times, who were also subjected to strict rules and rituals, often without their own consent. Although Trosi is considered by some as a form of purification for the family, the practice has been harshly criticized by international organizations, activists, and human rights advocates, who consider it a gross and flagrant transgression of the rights of young girls. Fortunately, a few decades ago in 1998, the government of Ghana passed a law banning Trosi, but it is believed that communities still practice this ritual. An even more disturbing reality is that Trosi is not the only controversial ritual in this region, as some beliefs also hold that priests can bestow supernatural powers on those who serve them. which has created a breeding ground for various mystical and superstitious practices in some of these local communities. We are coming to the end of the video, and you may be interested to know how it is possible to visit and enjoy this enigmatic country to the fullest. To visit Ghana, tourists must have a passport valid for at least 6 months from the date of entry into the country. Citizens of Spain, Mexico, and most Latin American countries, such as Argentina and Chile, must obtain a visa prior to arrival through the Ghanaian embassy in their respective countries. In the case of U.S. citizens, they do not need a visa for stays of less than 90 days, but must comply with entry requirements. Thinking about your wallet, it is good to know that Ghana is considered one of the most economical destinations in Africa, and therefore also in the world. To give some examples, a night in a mid-range hotel can cost between $20 and $50. A dinner for two in a mid-range restaurant usually costs less than $10, and a local beer in a bar usually costs less than $1. Getting around within the country includes options such as buses, cabs, and domestic flights, with buses being an economical and popular choice for most travelers. In terms of safety, Ghana is generally considered a safe destination for tourists compared to other African countries. In fact, in the global ranking of safety for tourists, Ghana ranks relatively high compared to many other countries on the African continent. When compared to the Americas, Ghana could be in a similar category to some countries in Central America or the Caribbean, such as Costa Rica or the Dominican Republic, according to various statistics. Ghana's improvement in security in recent years can be attributed to an increase in political stability, sustained growth in tourism, and a government focus on improving infrastructure and the presence of security forces. In addition, the country has made efforts to combat organized crime and improve the training of its police, which has helped reduce crime in key urban areas such as Accra. However, as with any destination, it is advisable to take basic precautions, such as avoiding poorly lit areas at night, not displaying valuables in public, and following the recommendations of locals to ensure a safe experience. From Uncensored World, we hope this video has helped you discover the curiosities and realities of Ghana. As you have seen, one of the most eccentric and extraordinary countries on the planet. If so, do not hesitate to leave us a nice like and a comment. It is the best way to help us to keep working every week to bring you interesting content like this. Or like this video that you can watch now, to discover another of the most mysterious and beautiful places on the planet. Click on it, you will enjoy it.